Part 80. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 800. At 10:30 in the morning, Du Guoying officially announced that CuteChildren's pager sales exceeded 30,000, achieving significant sales results and market recognition. As soon as this news came out, the whole industry was in a frenzy. Now, in this era, how many data are collected once a day is not clear to everyone. How many hours can store sales data be gathered? For a while, people in the industry spoke up and scolded CuteChildren technology for falsifying data, whether it was a TV station or a telephone interview, plus the things that happened with Lu Feng yesterday, or the latest ones. At this time, the popularity of CuteChildren's pagers is absolutely top-notch. Especially people in the industry feel that this product is being discussed everywhere. The employees in the company are talking about the relationship between Elmi and Lu Feng, as well as the true and false sales data. Kevin walked back and forth in the office angrily. He originally thought that Lu Feng had 2 brushes. Du Guoying sorted out the documents on the table. He had a lot of things to do today. He looked up at Kevin and said, "Don't wander around, okay? I don't want to face anymore." He released these sales data. Does anyone believe it? It's a laughing stock. Kevin clapped his hands angrily and said, he's slapping his face, isn't it during the New Year's Eve? You can tell me you have the ability, it sounds like a mystery. It's advertising and it's modeling design, that's all? That's it? No one can win all the time. Du Guoying was a little embarrassed. He didn't know how to appease Kevin, but he called the directly operated store below to ask about the situation. The real sales data was rather bleak. Incompetent. Play such a trick, shame on you, Kevin yelled angrily. He had expectations for Lu Feng, but the higher the expectations, the greater the disappointment today. Generally speaking, on the first day of listing, because the previous advertising and marketing will accumulate a large number of people who are very willing to buy. It was a periodical high point of sales after the product was launched. He thought that this high point was not as high as Everest, but it had to be as high as the Himalayas. Now it's better, damn, the tomb is high. Not only was Kevin scolding, but the news that the sales had broken 30,000, Mr. Feng learned immediately that in the Feng family study, Mr. Feng lost the writing brush in his hand and sat at the desk without saying a word. Jenkins stood there, the atmosphere was a little stiff, and he said, "This data must be fake, and the fake is outrageous." Not only the mainland industry was shocked, but also Xiangzhang said that he can't wait so much. Giving out fake data is more like a feeling of powerlessness. He cost me hundreds of millions to make such a pile of broken copper and iron. Mr. Feng took a deep breath and said, "Go ask, I want an explanation." As soon as the data came out, both sides of the Taiwan Strait and the 3 places are talking about one thing. What? Zhang Lang's talents are exhausted. Lu Feng met all domestic enterprises before. It was the first time that the pager had confronted foreign capital. As long as Motorola's supply goes up and the price goes down, no one can do anything about it. The brand power is left there. Jenkin pondered for a while. Deo, many people are saying that this is the ceiling of his ability. Let's talk to him first. If you can't overcome foreign capital, then I'll take it as soon as I see it, Mr. Feng muttered, and picked up the brush again, but he didn't care about drawing. At the same time, Su Yurong was also called by the board of directors. United Capital invested in GFN Electronics through a bank through a debt-to-equity swap, but when they invested, they hoped to see high growth, high valuation, and attract more capital entry. But now Lu Feng's move has made many people worry that once GFN Electronics can't open up new markets, its valuation will stagnate, or even fall, and investors will be disappointed and may withdraw. It's the beginning of the nightmare. Su Yurong was scolded, and kept reassuring that it would be absolutely fine. After leaving the conference room, he turned around and called Lu Feng. The operator at the headquarters of the group is already insane, all kinds of people keep calling in, and the problem becomes a mess. At the same time, there are many unexpected situations in the sales store. Some people fight because of the queue, and some people come to buy a pager with a lover and find their wife. My brother and I were also queuing up, all kinds of news were rising in a series of explosions, and news from CuteChildren's pager kept bombarding the ears of ordinary people. It was past 11 o'clock when Lu Feng returned to the headquarters. He was going to have a bite to eat, but an assistant ran over and said, "Mr. Lu, you are back." "What's wrong?" Lu Feng looked at her and said in a panic, "The house collapsed. Or is it on fire?" "No, there are a lot of calls to you, and investors have called, hoping we can provide them with real data," the assistant replied. "Tell them that various data will be reflected in the quarterly and annual reports. Don't bother me at this juncture," Lu Feng said angrily. "It just went public today. I can't hold back at all." Some people also scolded and said that if it doesn't work, they will withdraw the investment. "Excuse me. What's wrong with love? I won't answer their calls," Lu Feng said and walked towards the cafeteria. In the private room, everyone is basically there. Du Guoying just called the TV station and announced the latest sales data. At this moment, everyone is sitting together, and they seem to be a little lost. In the past, the launch of the product has been skyrocketing, but this time it is very unusual. In addition, there are more and more discussions about Lu Feng and Zhang Lang's talents. Everyone is a little surprised. Pushing the door open, Lu Feng walked in. People greeted each other. Lu Feng sat down and said, "I will eat your food, Mr. Du. Have the noon data been released?" "It has been announced," Du Guoying replied. Lu Feng looked around and saw that everyone was sullen, and said, "What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Today, the new product was launched, and the cafeteria didn't get any good food." Wei Yandan said hesitantly, "Mr. Lu, President Su of United Capital called and wanted to ask about the real sales situation and a general judgment about the future market. She couldn't find you, so she called me. Just tell her that there is no problem with the market, and the product is no problem. If they are unhappy, they will hold it back. In the face of investors who have not invested yet, we are grandchildren. Once the money is invested, then I will be my grandfather. Don't treat them." "You're welcome." Lu Feng picked up his chopsticks and said, "Why don't you have any wine? Drink less at noon today." The waiter brought a few bottles of red wine, and Lu Feng picked up the glass and said, "Today is the day when new products are launched. Come on, let's do it." Everyone's faces were a little gloomy and uncertain. They touched the glass and drank it. Lu Feng found that Kevin was not there and asked Du Guoying, "Where's the foreigner?" He was in a bad mood and said he was going to resign. "That, the letter of resignation has already been placed on your desk," Du Guoying said in a low voice. "The person has left." "Leave without saying hello?" Lu Feng frowned, snorted lightly, and said, "Why? The listing effect is not good." He said, "It's just that the concept is not the same, and some expectations have failed," Du Guoying said euphemistically. "Didn't you say that I'm all good?" Lu Feng asked with a smile. "How do you know?" Du Guoying asked awkwardly. "When I came back, the radio in the car was talking about this." "Don't be so emotional. Did I lead you to success too simply before, but now I'm a little later, and I start to think that this person is not good?" Lu Feng Chao the people asked. "How could it be?" Zhu Lidong said first. "Mr. Lu will always be President Lu. I believe the CuteChildren pager just needs a little time. Today's real sales data, put it on my desk tonight," Lu Feng ordered. CuteChildren technology announces the data in an orderly manner. Every announcement is the laughing stock of the industry. Such fake data really makes me laugh out loud. Su Liwa was sitting at the dining table and couldn't eat, and the performance of CuteChildren pager after the listing broke the last hope of domestic production. Lu Feng is of course his opponent, but at this moment he really hopes that Lu Feng will win, because he has the confidence to continue to do it because the domestic production has come out. But from the fake data that could no longer be faked, he saw a picture of CuteChildren pager being madly beaten on the ground by a number of foreign brands. Despair. Really desperate. There is a lot of buzz about the 4-character biography of Zhang Lang's talent. GFN Electronics will not go bankrupt, but once the industry fails to expand, the capital behind it will withdraw funds, so Lu Feng's frantic expansion will not only stop, but also sell part of the industry in exchange for a moment of respite. The best outcome is GFN Electronics has become an ordinary private enterprise. In the provincial office, Huang Yowei looked at the news, shook his head lightly, and muttered, "People always have to experience setbacks, just like steel, indomitable bravery will only break, failure is one of your age. It's a good thing, although I hope you will, but when I think of what happened to you in Suzhou. Damn it, it's so heartwarming." The news swept through the first and second tier cities like a tornado. In the Evening Daily had already published the story of Lu Feng fighting with Park Rendong for Elmi, but the headline was not about this, but about the sales of new products. Zhang Fengxia looked at the newspaper, patted it on the table, and said, "You deserve it. Hanging around with that foreign girl again, the situation on the first day of listing shows that his brain is not sure where it is, and if he suffers a big loss, he will have a long memory. It's gone." Zhang Xiaoyan carefully read the whole report. It was very miserable about the worst result of GFN Electronics, put down the newspaper and sighed, "It's okay for him to go bankrupt, I still have money, I'll support him." "You want to support him again?" "I cried a lot a few days ago, saying that I would cut it off completely, and now I'm waiting for him to go bankrupt and support her?" "You. Oh, your brain." Zhang Fengxia shook her head speechlessly, looked at Zhang Xiaoyan and said, "You are helpless." Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 801. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the night fell and the lights were on. The noisy city was quiet. The sales data of CuteChildren's pagers were integrated and placed on the conference table. The sales volume of 16,000 units is not bad for a domestic pager, but under such overwhelming publicity, this data is somewhat unsatisfactory. A group of people from CuteChildren's marketing department headed by Du Guoying sat there without speaking. The quiet needle drop in the conference room could be heard. Everyone lowered their heads and quietly glanced at each other, feeling that they were about to lose their jobs. "Are you satisfied with the sales data on the first day?" Lu Feng asked the crowd. "Mr. Lu, we will hold a review meeting and continue to strengthen offline advertising. At the same time, we will discuss with the dealers and launch different activities in various places. There is also a background of market fighting behind the sales volume. Bird pagers have great discounts and major foreign brands. Promotions are launched today." Du Guoying admitted his mistake sincerely. Du Guoying now somewhat agrees with Kevin's statement, "Don't be so rigid with others, talk and laugh at the dinner table as much as possible, and if you encounter such an obvious target on the first day of listing, you will offend people. The entire industry focuses on one company, and it can sell more than 10,000 units, which is really good. I think this figure is very good, it's much higher than I expected." Lu Feng saw that everyone was frightened. If he scolds here, they should think about resigning if they can't sleep at night. "I don't even want to work tomorrow, I'm going to quit anyway. Everyone has worked hard during this time. You are a new team and cannot be compared with the marketing department of the group. I think you have done a very good job. Let me ask, which new team can still manage under the containment of the world's top companies to achieve such a result? Only you have done it," Lu Feng said solemnly towards the crowd. "What is this? This is the prototype of the Tiger Wolf team." Everyone present was surprised, their shrunken shoulders slowly opened, and when they raised their heads, they looked a little more proud. According to this idea, I was not only awesome, but awesome. There was a bit of joy on everyone's faces, as if they suddenly felt that the busyness of these days was not so tired. Foreign brands are a big mountain, and they can't be overthrown in a short time, but if we dare to throw the foot of the mountain, it is a kind of success. Therefore, everyone will give out bonuses this month, and we will prepare a celebration party at noon tomorrow. Lu Feng moved towards everyone said, "Okay, let's not talk about other nonsense, go back and rest." The cheers continued, and the dullness just now was completely swept away. Lu Feng stood up and packed his things, patted Du Guoying on the shoulder and said, "You have arranged the celebration." Du Guoying was a little dumbfounded when she sat there. This sales manager Lu still wants to celebrate? Jiexun Technology is celebrating, and Watanabe is also celebrating. Since he joined the company for more than 3 months, the market share, brand power, and sales data in Greater China have been increasing rapidly. He allots shares. In a large room, on a tatami floor, Watanabe sat at the table, next to 2 girls in kimonos with delicate makeup knelt beside her and poured wine for her. There were 7 or 8 people sitting across from them, all of them old men in their 50s. Everyone was drinking, and they were very polite to the subordinate Watanabe. "Watanabe-san, what else do you want for the allotment for you this time?" a bald man said with a small wine glass in his hand. "Even if you mention it, as long as we can do it, we will apply for you to the board of directors." To tell the truth, I am not so obsessed with money anymore, but there is one thing, I must say, this time in the mainland area, we suppressed the company GFN Electronics. I think we should take advantage of the situation to beat it. Next, first suppress it in the field of communication, and then you can encourage Hong Kong investors to withdraw, and then make acquisitions. The assets of this company are still benign assets, very investment, Watanabe suggested. Several people looked at each other, laughed, raised their wine glasses and said, "Drink." Motorola executives didn't pay attention to Watanabe's suggestion at all. They didn't look down on GFN Electronics, but they looked down on such a market with a few $100 per capita. "I still think that we should pay more attention to this company," Watanabe said again after drinking it. "Okay, let's go back to discuss. Do you have any other ideas?" "I still want to be transferred to a more challenging position, the investment branch we set up on Wall Street. I think it is more challenging, and I am very familiar with Wall Street. I believe it can help the company embark on a new." Watanabe still wants to go back to Wall Street. Of course, he thinks that those things have passed, and as long as he follows the combination of punches he just said, GFN Electronics is completely useless. "We will discuss this matter solemnly." He was drinking at the scene and never talked about the slightest thing at work. These people at the top would never let Shizuo Watanabe go to a financial position. He has made achievements in overseas markets. Such people should stay in this position. Continue to increase market share in Greater China. There are too many such cases in this world. No one cares at the beginning, or the other party is standing in front of you, but they are dismissive of this company. When the other party starts to grow up, everything is too late. The next day, yesterday's news began to move to cities below the third tier. Today's newspaper headlines are basically dominated by the 4 characters Zhonglang Cai Jin. Those who once hated Lu Feng's teeth and itchy teeth jumped out one after another. Find fault in all aspects of electronic scolding. One of the articles, signed by Professor Liang, described Lu Feng as a clown of the era. A lot of media focused on sales, and various parties demonstrated in TV shows whether this data was true or not. The outside world was noisy, but Lu Feng rarely stayed in bed today. Lu Feng didn't answer any calls from investors. Everyone rushed towards Wei Yandan and called to find him. If he didn't answer the phone, he would go to Lu Feng's office to block him. It was useless for Su Yurong to call Wei Yandan. She called Zhu Lidong today. As soon as she arrived at the company, she was called over by several major shareholders and reprimanded. If there is a problem with this investment in GFN Electronics, it is really a major investment mistake. When Sun Hong Kai withdraws the capital, they also withdraw. With such a large amount of money, who will take over? It was after 9 o'clock in the morning that Lu Feng had just woken up. He had already done what he had to do, and the rest was to let everything he did ferment. He also doesn't know whether he can shake the status of foreign brands in this era, but he has done everything he can. Just after taking a shower, Zhu Lidong knocked on the door, walked in and said, "Mr. Lu, President Su called and wanted to talk to you. The investor wants all the information of Jiexun Technology." "No. I haven't seen anyone these days," Lu Feng said solemnly. Zhu Lidong said a little embarrassedly, that, she said she didn't answer the phone, so she came to find it. "Come on. You tell them, come, how can you stand in front of me? I can't give them a satisfactory answer. The answer is in the market, but the market needs time." Lu Feng raised his head to look at Zhu Lidong and said, "The company has developed to this day, and there should be no more panic situations, right?" "That's not true. So, it's not that bad. In the past, even the lower-level employees of GMA Foods thought about how to get their wages back after the company closed down," Lu Feng said, picked up the newspaper on the table, flipped through it, and lost it. He entered the trash can next to him and said, "I'll rest for a few days." "Okay." Zhu Lidong turned around and went out. At noon, Lu Feng went to the cafeteria and had a drink with everyone. The atmosphere at the scene was very good. However, the marketing department of Jiexun Technology was not used to the marketing department of the headquarters. In their eyes, the launch of new products was completed. In this way, there are actually rewards, which is absolutely unfair. There has always been friction between the two parties in private, and Du Guoying also felt that there was some difficulty in cooperating with the marketing department of the headquarters. During this time, he has been busy recruiting talents and looking for people from the Talent Reserve Center. Kevin returned to Xiangjiang and lived in the house he rented. A person with a position like him would not be able to find a job after a year or a half, unless he lowered his position and salary. At noon, I was eating, looking at the newspaper in my hand, and reading an article titled, "Jiexun Technology will be the first domino that GFN Electronics fell." The whole article lists the GFN electronic model very rigorously. Once such a company fails to expand and no longer becomes the darling of the capital market, it will form a continuous thunderstorm model, which will rise faster and fall faster. Kevin put the newspaper aside. What he worries most now is that Lu Feng is bankrupt and insane. What should he do if he sue himself? Ugh. With a long sigh, Kevin secretly thought that he was also considered to be unfavorable for fleeting years. He met such a person at the beginning of the year, and he should find a master to break it. The scolding, questioning, and ridicule from the outside world came like thunder, and Lu Feng took a lunch break after eating, but he couldn't sleep. In the Hua yarn factory, trucks drove the goods away, and the workers were busy in an orderly manner. Zhang Xiaoyan had just held a meeting with the R/U0026D team. "What's wrong? Duo got into trouble again?" Zhang Fengxia asked. "It's been pretty good lately," Zhang Xiaoyan pondered for a while and said, "The people in the newspaper are crazy, the people who run on the inside and outside are so ugly. You say how uncomfortable he is now." Seeing that she still regarded herself as the daughter-in-law of the old Lu family, Zhang Fengxia said, "I guess it's very sad. Now I should be crying with my arms around that foreign girl." Zhang Xiaoyan didn't speak, just stood up silently and walked out. "I'm just guessing. You don't hate me, do you?" "Sister, no way." Zhang Fengxia was a little anxious. "No, let's eat yours." Zhang Xiaoyan returned to her office, picked up the phone and called Lu Feng. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 802. When Lu Feng heard the phone ringing in a daze, he got up and walked out, feeling a little upset. He told them not to take the phone to him, picked up the phone and said in a high voice, "Who are you?" "I'm President Lu's female secretary, and he's not here now." Zhang Xiaoyan was all too familiar with Lu Feng's voice. Hearing him speak like that, he couldn't help laughing. He seemed to be fine. "Are you his female secretary? Why didn't I know he had a female secretary?" "What's your name?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked. Lu Feng heard the voice on the phone somewhat familiar, but he had seen too many people recently, so he subconsciously thought about the investors, but he didn't remember who this voice was. "This has nothing to do with you. Who are you?" "Leave your contact information and I'll tell him later," Lu Feng continued to whisper. "Okay, tell him that there is someone named Zhang Xiaoyan looking for him." "Xiaoyan," Lu Feng reacted in an instant, slapped his thigh and said, "I said that this voice is so kind, like my wife, I didn't expect it to be true." "But you haven't heard it for so long." "Forget it. I thought you must be in a bad mood. I asked you to come back for a few days. You are so leisurely and carefree. You can do your job strong." "I'm not busy. I'm free now. I'll buy some food for a while and go home to cook. It just so happens that I haven't seen much in a while. The affairs between us belong to us and we can't affect the children, right?" Lu Feng smiled at the phone and said, "Just wait." The phone was hung up. Zhang Xiaoyan unconsciously showed a smile on her face, and then her lips were slightly opened, revealing her snow-white teeth, looking so sweet. Putting down the phone, Zhang Xiaoyan walked out the door briskly. She knocked on the door of Zhang Fengxia's office and said, "I'll leave early today. You can open the meeting for them at night." "Is this done?" Zhang Fengxia teased. "You are the same every day. If you go on like this, remarriage will be a matter of time. Let's talk about it. The main thing is how much." Zhang Xiaoyan turned around and left. Lu Feng started to get busy changing his clothes. After packing up, he took the car keys and went downstairs. He drove straight to the vegetable market and bought some vegetables, wine, snacks, and other miscellaneous items. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng stood at the gate of the school. Duo came out and saw Lu Feng's eyes glowing instantly. He rushed over and shouted, "Dad!" Lu Feng reached out and hugged her. The little guy has gotten a little fat recently, and his stature has jumped up a bit. He hugged him in his arms and said, "I've grown up, big girl." "Dad, are you done?" Duo hugged Lu Feng's neck, slapped his face, and said, "Dad, I've been reading the newspaper recently. A lot of your news is from a foreign lady with you." Lu Feng's expression froze. He knew exactly how those newspapers were written. What would the child think when he knew this? "How do you see yourself?" "Then what do you think about this?" Lu Feng asked tentatively. Duo was also hearty, grinned and said, "Dad, I just looked at the photos and didn't know a few words, but the children in the class accepted me. My father goes to the newspaper every day, and sometimes on TV. It's the teacher. Ask me today if Dad's company is going to close down." "How could that be?" Lu Feng saw that the gatekeeper was holding a newspaper in his hand, which happened to report Lu Feng, and Lu Feng borrowed it and said to Duo, "Look, this title says, 'Lu Feng the old man is crazy.'" The uncle couldn't help rolling his eyes, and he also bullied the child for not being able to read. Coaxing Duo into happiness, he got in the car and went straight home. When he got home, Zhang Xiaoyan was busy in the kitchen. The table was already full of meals, which looked extraordinarily rich. "Didn't you say I did it?" Lu Feng entered the house and found that the house had also been cleaned up. Zhang Xiaoyan's hair was tied up, and she came out with a scarf around her neck and said, This time I will do it. I was thinking about what happened to you, and there are overwhelming reports outside. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. It's all right. Lu Feng took a piece of sweet and sour pork ribs and put it in his mouth, and said, "It's not like you don't know, I've been through a lot. What is this? It's almost enough, you can't finish it? Ah, the refrigerator and the color TV are all used. No, you have already paid me your electricity bill until 2020, what should I do?" Zhang Xiaoyan sat down and said, "Let's eat." During a meal, Duo was always tired of being in Lu Feng's arms. He was so pretentious that Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't stand it. The TV was playing a Kui altar, and there were bursts of laughter as the background. To stare blankly at the TV. Everything in the room is warm and makes people relieved of all fatigue. In this family, no one is arguing about right and wrong anymore, and they are not bound by the world. It seems that everything has passed by, and the plain and watery days continue to move forward. Outside, there has been a lot of quarrel about GFN Electronics and Lu Feng, but unfortunately, even if the sky is torn apart, it will not affect this side in the slightest. Elmi is calling her father. Today's news about GFN Electronics is too fierce, especially when some people say that the investors in Xiangjiang have begun to be unhappy. This is a big crisis for GFN Electronics. Everyone thinks that if there is a domestic brand in the communication industry, the first one must be Bird, which is not big enough and untenable, but Jiexun Technology. Shopping malls are like battlefields. There are no absolute things. Today's high-rise buildings may collapse in an instant tomorrow. As long as the equity is not turned into money and put into the pocket, it will always be on the gambling table. Dad, I think if the investors in Xiangjiang want to sell the equity, we can buy it, or even buy it at a low price. GFN Electronics sales channels are very good. As long as we buy it, we will save money here. A lot of money. The key is to save time for layout. Elmi secretly said, Lu Feng is still a bit capable in China, the market here can be handed over to him. As for supervision, you can send one, the team is here. This is indeed an attractive fruit. Father Elmi looked at the time here, it was after 1 p.m., and said, I will report to the board of directors this afternoon, and I will get back to you when the time comes, but I think the board of directors I should agree, but we are short of funds right now. We can borrow money from GFN Electronics to acquire it and form a debt transfer. We have an international team of lawyers, and then we will strip and package the debts of GFN Electronics, Elmi pondered. This is also a way. The father and daughter became more and more excited as they talked, as if they were as happy as they had picked up a golden lump on the road for no reason, but they didn't know how many people's feet had been smashed by this golden lump. The night was already deep, I fell asleep a lot, it was especially sweet. Lu Feng closed the door tiptoely and entered the inner room. Zhang Xiaoyan sat up and said, What are you doing? Go to sleep, go to bed, tomorrow. Worry. So, hurry up. Lu Feng got into bed and said, Time is precious. You, go to bed earlier, we are both divorced, let's fix these things. Zhang Xiaoyan lay down and covered the quilt. It doesn't matter if it's married or not, don't care about that, the things that should be rectified have to be rectified, come on, sweat for the glorious cause of mankind, Lu Feng said and rushed up. The moonlight outside was extraordinarily white. Lu Feng was smoking a cigarette and looking at the starry sky outside. Thinking about what happened in the past 2 days, the world has changed so quickly, faster than when he took off his pants. He was so ruthless, boasting when you praise God, when you scold you can't wait to be scolded into the 18 layers of hell. Go to sleep. Zhang Xiaoyan blushed slightly and said, What's wrong? It's just that I'm a little confused all of a sudden, and I seem to have lost motivation. People, they always unload everything in an instant and sigh with emotion. Lu Feng sighed. What? You gave me all the power just now. Zhang Xiaoyan rolled his eyes at him and said, Stop smoking and go to sleep. What are you? Lu Feng turned his head and looked at her and said, now you're learning badly. I learned from Fengxia, and now I don't feel awkward anymore. After so long, I have also learned to be dashing. Zhang Xiaoyan turned over a little arrogantly and stopped talking. Lu Feng smiled, put out the cigarette, covered the quilt and fell asleep. The next day, the Jiexun pager thing was still fermenting and spread abroad. For a while, many people were paying attention to such a new company. As the public opinion continued, Lu Feng was completely labeled as Zhang Lang's talent. But in the next few days, Lu Feng seemed to have evaporated like a pet, no one could contact him, and the sales data of Jiexun pagers were also announced according to the established plan. In the blink of an eye, the news of Jiexun's pagers began to blow into third and fourth tier cities and into the lives of ordinary people. All kinds of explosive sales data stimulated the attention of ordinary people, coupled with the cool appearance, and legend has it that there is such a thing, and it is a must to pick up girls. Bracelet-style pagers have begun to appear on the hands of girls. They look so foreign. In addition, there are so many people in front of the store that they are sold out every day. For a while, many people have begun to be tempted, especially some who want to hug beautiful women. Returned licking dog. In a private room of the hotel, there were 4 or 5 young girls sitting. One of them had long hair and a handsome appearance. He kept his head down and did not speak. The other 3 or 4 chatted. A man in his 30s sat opposite, looking a bit rich. Without a few of us, Xiao Xiao won't come out. Let me tell you, I won't drink tonight, we'll have something to do later, a girl said bluntly to the man, almost telling him frankly. We are here for free food. It's okay, I just have a gift I want to give to Xiao Xiao. The man took out a well-packaged box and put it on the table. Look at it, do you like it? The girl named Xiao Xiao opened the box, which was written in silver letters, Jiexun Paging, Communicate Youth. Isn't that the pager? Now this one is very popular, and it's very beautiful, look for the bracelet. The girl next to her was already exclaiming, as if she was a little happier than Xiao Xiao. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 803. The bracelet was taken out and hung on the pager, it looked particularly beautiful. Xiao Xiao was playing with it in her hand, and the happiness on her face could not be concealed. This one is really good looking, much stronger than those black ones, and it's also small, Xiao Xiao said in love. It's good if you like it. It's out of stock on the market right now, so it's not easy to buy it. I also bought it from someone. The middle-aged man saw that she was very happy, and took the opportunity to say, eat first, then go to the dance hall to play, how about it? Okay, Xiao Xiao agreed. I don't know how many times such a scene has been staged all over the country, but some people succeed, some fail, and many succeed, especially when a girl gets such a gift, others will envy it. For a week, the outside world was disturbed and doubts continued. The news had already flown to Wall Street. A newspaper published the news of Jiexun technology. Lu Feng disappeared for 7 days and did not reply to shareholder news. In the Goldman Sachs office, after reading the news, Lambert shook his head and silently threw the newspaper aside. He had decided not to pay attention to this young man anymore. In his eyes, an entrepreneur, no matter what problems he faced, we must face it head on, especially in the face of investors' doubts, we must make an explanation. Because as an investor, he knows the feeling of suffering. Xiangzhang, Mr. Feng can't wait. If Jiexun technology really has a problem, then he will make a decision to re-evaluate the investment of Jiexun Electronics. In the study, Mr. Feng looked at the stack of newspapers in front of him. He couldn't sleep well these days. Feng Xiao stood aside and whispered, Dad, I think Brother Lu may be tired. It will take some time. Where can I get a listing? It exploded and needed product iteration. Mr. Feng originally wanted to send Feng Xiao over to ask why, but when he heard this, he immediately dismissed the idea. His own son had a natural affection for Lu Feng, and he could easily be fooled and lame when he went there. In case Lu Feng was in a hurry, he fooled Feng Xiao to make additional investment, and signed a contract as Feng Xiao's current vice president of the company. It would be really troublesome. No matter what, I have to explain the situation. I can't even find anyone. What is it like? Mr. Feng raised his eyelids, glanced at Jenkin and said, "You can go for a trip tomorrow and ask him face to face. You have to say come out of nowhere." Zhenkun nodded understandingly and said, "I must ask why." "Yesterday's sales data has come out." Du Guoying looked at the folder in his hand, and the whole person was uncontrollably excited. The data reported by the major dealers is written on it. The single-day sales exceeded 57,000 units. In 7 days, the data increased continuously. "Yesterday's data has come out." Du Guoying pushed open the door of CuteChildren Technology's marketing department office and said loudly to everyone, "Guess how much? 40,000. 45,000. 43. Not much, 50,000. 7. Du Guoying's face was filled with uncontrollable ecstasy, and shouted to the crowd, "Motorola's daily maximum is 60,000. In this off-season sales, we are only less than an international brand. The distance of 3,000 copies." Everyone present was excited. These 7 days were really difficult. There were doubts and even insults all around. They watched the sales of CuteChildren pagers improve little by little, from more than 10,000, to more than 20,000, to more than 40,000, and then to today's 57,000. Under the huge public opinion offensive, CuteChildren pager has completely become an exclusive product in the hands of women. "I'm going to tell President Lu the news first. We succeeded, and we really succeeded," Du Guoying said with red eyes. This is the first time he has faced success. It was so difficult and tortuous. There is too much pressure. When entering the door of the company every day, everyone looks at themselves in the wrong way. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng got up and cleaned up. Seeing the news on the pager, he kicked the pager in his pocket with a calm expression, took the car keys and returned to the company. As soon as he entered the office, Du Guoying rushed up, first gave Lu Feng a big hug, hugged tightly, and said excitedly, "Mr. Lu, we have succeeded, our sales have broken through, and we have created a miracle." He sobbed as he spoke, and his snot flowed out. He was so excited that he couldn't tell, and the snot even blew a crystal clear bubble. "Wipe your nose first." Lu Feng looked at him with some disgust and said, "Give me the market report." Sitting at the desk, Lu Feng flipped through the folder in his hand. The sales volume in the past few days has risen by surprise, which means that there is a lot of emotional consumption. Users focus on giving gifts to girls, or girls. Buy it yourself. Yes, the basic plan has been formed. Lu Feng closed the folder and said solemnly. "Lu, woo-woo, President Lu, why aren't you excited? This week I feel like I've experienced a reincarnation. People outside scold me face to face, people inside the group scold me behind my back. I feel that my life is worse than death. I don't sleep well every day." Du Guoying cried bitterly as she spoke. "You're excited because you don't have control over the whole, it's a surprise to you, and you feel sad about the insults of others because you don't believe what you're doing is useful." Lu Feng looked at him. "Dao, I am in a calm mood because I absolutely believed that it would be possible from the day the project was established. But woo-woo. It's human nature, not many people can firmly believe in themselves, people are always fighting against themselves. One voice says yes, another voice says no. Okay, restore your emotions, gather people and have a meeting." Lu Feng stood up and said solemnly. When Wei Yandan learned that Lu Feng was back, she rushed to the office as soon as possible. She called Du Guoying across the street, walked to the door of the office, knocked on the door, and walked in and said, "Mr. Lu, because you don't answer your call, Sun Hung Kai, come down. The notice said that someone will be sent over tomorrow to ask you why. Ask me, Lu Feng chuckled, sat down and said, which one is going to be scolded? I heard that it is Jenkin, Mr. Lu. Mr. Feng seems to be dissatisfied with the investment in this pager, Wei Yandan reminded. Not satisfied? Then change the investor. That's all, love won't come. Is there anything else? Lu Feng asked him. No more for now. Wei Yandan didn't dare to say anything more. Be busy with your work. In the conference room, the management of CuteChildren Technologies marketing department was all in place. A few minutes later, Lu Feng walked in a suit and leather shoes, and everyone got up. Lu Feng didn't let them sit down. He stood in the chairman's seat and looked at everyone, with a serious smile on his face, then withdrew the smile, and said solemnly, sales are up. Well done everyone. I said before, don't tell me about domestic rivals and foreign rivals. There is only one rival in my eyes, and that is all the companies that block our development. It's the same sentence, killing them is just around the corner. I won't talk nonsense today, just call you here, just 3 words, and give out bonuses. The meeting is over. The applause from the conference room resounded through the whole room. For them, it was not just about the bonus, but the recognition of their own efforts. The sense of pride and self-recognition emanating from the bottom of their hearts was more rewarding than money. People are excited. The market demand is stable in the short term, and there are only so many pagers. Those who want to buy are the ones who buy this one, but not the other one. It is an either-or game in itself. Ericsson, Panasonic, and Toshiba have been vigorously doing activities during this period, but the sales data in recent days have been steadily declining. In the conference room, CuteChildren had a headache looking at the report. It was so cheap. Why couldn't it be sold? How's Motorola sales data these days? CuteChildren asked the deputy next to him. They didn't announce it, but the market is very rich now. There are basically no scalpers lining up in front of their major stores. The market is off-season recently. The off-season can't be so light. This is not the off-season, this is nonsense. What about the waveguide? I think it should be squeezed by the waveguide. Their price has reached more than 2,300, and people who bought it a few years ago have begun to curse. Everyone has been discussing and discussing. I don't know how the market is going recently. As for all of them buying CuteChildren pagers, it's even more ridiculous. There are so many people queuing in front of CuteChildren stores every day. How many real customers are there? The news is constantly on every day. What to use CuteChildren pager to propose has become the 3 essential items for marriage, and why the marriage is wrong because I didn't buy this pager. Those news all find it absurd. There was also a meeting in the Motorola conference room. Nakatajiro was sitting there with an ugly face. Lu Run looked at the report in his hand and said, March is the off-season. Before, the single-day sales exceeded 60,000 units because there was a certain amount of transitional consumption in the market. It's just that everyone is holding back and buying every opportunity, so I think it is very reasonable to restore the daily sales of more than 20,000 units. If it is a gradual decline, it can be explained like this, but in 7 days, sales have plummeted like this. Do you think this explanation is reasonable? Nakatajiro said solemnly. There must be someone whose sales have skyrocketed, squeezing the market. The high-level executives present glanced at each other, thinking in their hearts, whose sales have skyrocketed. Never heard of it? Not only these 2 days, but the entire market has experienced a sharp drop in sales in these 7 days. Except for the waveguide, which has exchanged price for volume, sales have begun to stabilize and occupy a certain market. Which one did it go to? Some people in charge who are keen on the market have already sensed that something is wrong, and began to contact each other in private to inquire. In this era when sales data are considered trade secrets, it is not easy to find opponents in a short period of time. But I still have to look for it, otherwise, I don't know who killed it, how wrong it is. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 804. What an ape she got the incentive stock, and now his income is a lot higher than when he was in the Roma group. This time the job hopping can be regarded as a success. In the office, What an Ape's mood was very special, and he looked through the computer mailbox over and over again, but did not see the news he wanted to see. The transfer to the United States seems to be yellow. With a long sigh, What an Ape sat in the seat like a deflated ball. His biggest dream was to make a difference on Wall Street and become a global leader, but at the end of his life, he still couldn't do it. He is not so much about money. Great greed, more eager to leave a little reputation in the world. Maybe it's time to retire. As What an Ape was talking, he planned to use the mouse to close the mailbox, but suddenly an email rushed in with the title, "Sales in the mainland region showed a cliff-like plummet." What an Ape frowned, opened the mailbox, and looked very ugly after reading the email. This situation is very wrong. The sales of any company will have a slow downward trend, and then stabilize the market. It's definitely a situation in the market that they didn't grasp when this happened. What an Ape frowned slightly, picked up the phone next to him and called Nakatajiro to understand the situation. After communicating with the board of directors, Elmi's father decided to let Elmi contact Lu Feng. If the situation of GFN Electronics is out of control, then they should intervene in advance. They are responsible for contacting several investment companies of Sun Hongkai and transferring the equity. Have a smooth ride. The matter had already taken shape. Elmi called Lu Feng and wanted him to come out and talk about it. In the office, although Lu Feng hadn't come back for a week, the desk was still spotless. Just as he was about to do some daily affairs, the phone rang on the desk. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment, secretly guessing who was calling. He hesitated for a while, but answered, "Which one?" "It's me, Elmi." Elmi on the other end of the phone spoke in a relaxed tone, and she had a good time in the past few days, and said, "Mr. Lu, I know that GFN Electronics has been in some situations recently, and I have also. If you understand your difficulties, just say it directly. If you have difficulties, we can lend a helping hand to you." "Lend a helping hand?" Lu Feng asked in confusion. "What kind of help?" "I am a strong man. It is absolutely impossible for me to eat soft rice. Of course, if you say, this soft rice will not work. I won't give you face if you eat it, then I'll be welcome." "Elmi. We at Nokia feel that GFN Electronics assets are very solid. If your investors have the idea of withdrawing capital, and the crisis threatens the survival of the company, we can talk about equity. For the stability of the company, you can be an intermediary." Elmi said sincerely. In her eyes, intervening at this time is really a gift for Lu Feng. To know how many investors have withdrawn, they have ended up selling their shares at a low price. Lu Feng became happy when he heard this. Good guy, here comes another one who wants to hunt for the bottom. "Baby, where did you hear some news that our investors are going to withdraw?" Lu Feng asked on the phone. "Mr. Lu, you know that Jiexun's pager is like this. Let's be honest between us. I also heard news from the industry. The people from Sun Hongkai will be here tomorrow." Elmi is very straightforward. "Say it. Come on. When he sees me, if he dares to withdraw his investment, I will slap my mouth." "Do you believe it?" Lu Feng gambled with her. "Mr. Lu. Don't do this," Elmi sighed and said, "it doesn't solve the problem. Let me tell you, the only person who can beat me in this world is myself. As long as I'm not willing to let go, no one in this world can buy my company." Lu Feng hung up the phone after he finished speaking. Elmi was full of anger, and she kindly offered a helping hand at this juncture, but the other party actually ranted to her. "Wait to die for yourself." After reading the news, Lu Feng was not annoyed. he sneered and threw the pager aside. For most of the day, the industry has exploded. Everyone contacted privately and found that sales have dropped a little recently. This is simply strange, because according to market logic, it is impossible to happen. Nakatajiro stood in front of the phone, bent over and kept saying hi. A thin layer of sweat had already appeared on his forehead. Hearing the abuse on the other end of the phone, he really wanted to scold at him back with Baga, but he couldn't because of this job. When the market is so big, you actually told me you don't know. Are you a pig's brain? What are you doing all day long? Do you want to do it? If you don't want to do it, get out of the way. You are the most rubbish in the world. Yes, do you understand, what nabe? She cursed into the phone. Yes. Immediately investigate. I can't find out the specific reason tomorrow morning. I will send someone to replace you, and by the way, I will slap you both in the face. Yes. Nakatajiro hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and turned to Luron to vent his anger. A group of high-level executives in the office were scolded with blood, and then asked them to quickly find out the problem so that they could formulate relevant countermeasures. Luron's idea was very simple. Since everyone was in doubt, he called over to gather together, and chose Guangzhou as the gathering point for the local leaders of all parties. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Wei Yandan received an invitation. The person in charge of Motorola Guangzhou invited him to go to a restaurant in Guangzhou for dinner. This gathering gathered all the communications on the market. Lu Feng walked out of the conference room, glanced at the invitation, and threw it into the trash can. He was about to go to the R/U0026D company to hold a meeting and inquire about Liukan's recent R/U0026D work, especially how much the purchased technology had digested. After Elmi received the invitation, she really didn't know the market situation, because Nokia had no product sales in China, so she just got to know about it. After cleaning up, she went straight to Guangzhou by car. At 7 o'clock in the evening, in the banquet hall of the five-star hotel, everyone gathered together. This time, there were few greetings. Most of them were district leaders. The food was almost ready, everyone held up their wine glasses and greeted each other for a while, and Li Rusong, the head of Motorola, took the lead and said, "Today, everyone is so anxious to gather together. I believe everyone knows why. We are all given certain expectations by the boss. Came. So, I'm not going to make a fool of yourself anymore. It's the issue of sales," Li Rusong said with a serious face. "Some people may say that sales are a trade secret and cannot be disclosed to the public, but I know that everyone has a problem with sales. Some incredible things happened. Let me start by saying that Motorola's pager sales were cut in half within a week and fell off a cliff. The scene was instantly fried, and there was an uproar. They knew about the decline in Motorola's sales, but they didn't expect it to be cut in half. The person in charge of Ericsson said, since Mr. Li is so open and honest, Ericsson also said that in terms of pagers, our sales have plummeted by 2/3. "We are 1/3 less," said the Toshiba man. "We also cut in the middle," the person in charge of Panasonic said. "We directly lost 80% of our sales," said the person in charge of Bird. "Let's lose 1/6. We are the same half." The people present reported the data one after another, and everyone's expressions were already in shock. How could it all plummet? Elmi was dumbfounded listening to what the translator next to her said. From the market theory, this situation does not hold. There is no major risk. The market should fall or rise in an elegant downward line. How could it all plummet? It's impossible. Someone is lying. I'm definitely not lying. It's fine to show you the financial ledger. I can also guarantee that the boss personally ordered that we must find out about this matter. Me too. 99% of the companies producing pagers in the entire market are here, and all of them have plummeted. Where are the sales going? Asked the person in charge of Ericsson. Everyone's heads were full of doubts, and their brows were furrowed. Suddenly, someone stood up and looked at the people present, and began to nod according to the company. After counting them, they always felt that something was missing. What's wrong? It's not that 99% of the companies came, and one didn't. The person in charge of Ericsson was a little shocked, and said solemnly, the people from CuteChildren Technology didn't come. Good news. Everyone looked at them left and right, but they really didn't find anyone from CuteChildren Technology. In an instant, everyone present reacted. The whole banquet hall was silent, and everyone's eyes were full of disbelief. Impossible. Impossible. The head of Motorola has been sluggish on the spot, and even forgot to breathe, but they have to accept that in such a situation in the market, there is definitely a big seller, causing the market sales to flock to that one. Elmi was sitting there with a stiff face. Only Lu Feng's words in the afternoon were left in his mind, no one in this world can beat me, except myself. How is it possible? There is no news in the market, Elmi said to herself. If CuteChildren's pagers didn't have such overwhelming publicity and public opinion, then such explosive sales would definitely not live there, but now CuteChildren's pagers are overwhelming, and these sales are all considered by them to be false. The person in charge of Motorola stood up and said to everyone, I have something to do temporarily, I will leave now, everyone eat well and drink well. I'm leaving too. Everyone got up and walked downstairs. Everyone looked solemn, and their hearts were already pounding on the shore. At this moment, they had realized that during this week, the ridiculed Lu Feng, the talented Lu Feng, was silent. Lieutenant General's Corporate Lore. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 805. The major leaders will call their respective bosses as soon as they go back. This will be news that will make the entire industry shaken. Elmi walked downstairs with a dazed look on her face. The impact of this incident on her was too great. She wondered what made CuteChildren pager survive in such a situation. It can only be said that the fake data released by Lu Feng and the long queues in the direct sales store covered the eyes of too many people. When they thought those people were all fake, in the past 7 days, those people gradually became real. Elmi came back to her senses, and the first thing that came to her mind was to find Lu Feng as soon as possible. The words she said in the afternoon must be taken back, otherwise Lu Feng would be annoyed, and the sales channel contract would be broken. The phone in Lu Feng's office kept ringing, but unfortunately he was in a meeting in the R/U0026D company at the moment, so he might not be able to answer these calls. In Motorola's office, Lu Run frowned when he heard the voice on the phone, but there was a bit of doubt on his face, and after a long time he said, Are you sure? This matter is very certain, everyone is plummeting, and only CuteChildren Technology is left. The reason why it was not noticed is that it was covered up by their own powerful illusion. Lu Run leaned back on the chair. The impact of this incident on him was too strong, subverting all his impressions of domestic production. If a foreign-funded company competes with Motorola like this, it can only show that the other party is superior, but a domestic company has such strength. What is this? Lu Run didn't dare to think about it. What kind of scene would it be if he gave Lu Feng a company with similar brand power and technical background as Motorola? There is a saying that suits Lu Feng, he will be the opponent's hell. What? What did you say? CuteChildren Technology sales have exploded. Cai Tianlun thought that his ears were broken, and dared not say anything. You said CuteChildren pager sales squeezed the entire industry? Feng Electronics? You are kidding. Me. Mr. Cai, I didn't tease you, everyone's sales are falling, and only CuteChildren Technology is left. This matter is basically ironclad. On the other end of the phone, he talked about the situation tonight. CuteChildren sat in his seat with dull eyes. At the moment, all he could think about was the forum that Lu Feng stood on the stage that day, saying that sentence loudly. He wanted to talk to the whole industry. Declare war. If this didn't happen. It was a joke when it was told, but now that the joke actually happened, it was a miracle, but the problem was that if the miracle happened to the opponent, it was really creepy. CuteChildren sat there with his head buzzing. He still couldn't believe it. This matter was beyond his cognition. How did he do it? Is this something a human can do? CuteChildren muttered to himself. He was shocked and didn't know how to express it. Su Liwa was also frightened by the news. The office was filled with smoke. Su Liwa, Suibo, and others stood or sat in different expressions, all smoking cigarettes and silent. After the four of them heard the news, everyone was already numb. This is not something that people can do. Su Liwa has always judged Lu Feng. He believes that this person is indeed capable, and he may be able to wrestle with foreign investors. He believes that Lu Feng's greatest limit is to bully a foreign brand. Unexpectedly, Lu Feng didn't hit one. He rushed in without saying a word, slapped everyone in the face, and slapped everyone in the face. Now everyone who hits is stunned. What should I do now? Pug said in a muffled voice. I think in a sense, this is a good thing for us. If foreign capital is watching CuteChildren, wouldn't we be able to take a breath? Su Guangzi pondered and said, the current price of CuteChildren pagers is 2006, if this price stabilizes, then it will be an important price for foreign capital to conquer, and the price market below 2600 is our market. When everyone heard this, they nodded their heads. In crisis, there is opportunity in crisis. CuteChildren pager has a foothold at the price of 2600, which is a good thing for them, and it will essentially make Bird a lot easier. Su Liwa was smoking a cigarette. Although this is a good thing, CuteChildren took off too crazy, and it still made them feel cold behind their backs. Such a person, who charges against a company alone, will be a kind of what scene? This person is too terrifying. We need to analyze him. What kind of qualitative change has taken place in CuteChildren? Su Liwa muttered to himself. The previous four had always believed that Lu Feng was just a man created by the times, rising above the wind. They were a few years older than Lu Feng, and more than once in their hearts, they thought that it was a matter of time before they surpassed Lu Feng. This is the first time they have fought, and they were sighing a week ago, but after just 7 days, Lu Feng made them feel fear. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the door of the R/U0026D company's conference room opened, and Lu Feng came out. He was a little dissatisfied with the situation of the R/U0026D company. Now the entire R/U0026D company has more than 5,000 R/U0026D personnel, but there are many projects involved. Mr. Lu, I have already recruited a lot in terms of manpower. This year, I have also absorbed a lot from the Talent Reserve Center. The main strategic center is still centered on the Ruxin laboratory. This year, the Wipita TV is also being upgraded. VCD technology is also in the midst of a tense fight. Sony and Toshiba have recently developed high-density digital storage technology, and we are also following up on DVD technology, as well as air conditioners, washing machines, refrigerators, and more. Lu Cheng followed behind Lu Feng, and he felt a headache when he counted these categories. The development was too fast. After decades of accumulation by other companies, Lu Feng could not wait to catch up in 3 or 5 years. Lu Feng stopped and pondered for a while, and said, restart Ruxin Lab as soon as possible, and at the same time, I will speed up the strategic cooperation with Nokia. In the field of communication, I will catch up with Nokia's express train. As for talents, I will find a way. The Talent Reserve Center should become the strategic core of the enterprise. Mr. Lu, I don't know if I should say something. Lu Cheng looked at Lu Feng with hesitation. Say. I think it's time to stop. This year, the expansion of our /U0026D companies is too rapid, and hundreds of millions of funds have been poured into it, and even splashes have appeared. Let's accumulate technology first, and then start to pursue. Talent is a key, another problem. Yes, the problem of funding, Lu Cheng sighed and said, it's easy to set up a project, and the follow-up research and development is burning money. The more you go forward, the more money you invest, the more money you invest. The problem is, it's not necessarily successful if you invest in it. You don't need to think about money, it's not something you should think about. Let's just do it first. I already understand the current situation of the R/U0026D company. The technical barriers of DVD must be in our hands, understand. Lu Feng moved towards Lu Cheng. Road. Lu Cheng nodded, already understanding that Lu Feng planned to go all the way to the dark. Back at the group headquarters, it was already 11 o'clock in the evening. Lu Feng still didn't know that a major earthquake had occurred in the entire industry. Wei Yandan hadn't gotten off work yet. When she saw Lu Feng coming back, she came over immediately and walked face to face with Lu Feng. Not off work yet, Lu Feng looked at her in surprise. Mr. Lu, there are a lot of people calling today. There wasn't a Guangzhou dinner party in the evening, and the sales of each company fell. When we got together to talk about this matter, it was inferred that our sales were soaring. Wei Yandan picked up his hand's folder and said, these people have made an appointment with you, do you want to call back? Lu Feng took the folder and glanced at it. The first name was Elmi. Aren't these people the same people who taunted him some time ago and scolded him for his exhaustion? What are you calling for? Lu Feng asked. I say congratulations to our pager sales, but I feel more is that I want to spy on the real situation, and the cooperative enterprise that was clamoring to settle the payment for the goods before is very polite to call today, saying that the money is not in a hurry. Wei Yandan replied. Haha, Lu Feng chuckled lightly, looking very disdainful, and said to Wei Yandan, there are many people who are icing on the cake, but there are few people who give away charcoal in the snow. The more money you have, the more people will put money into your hands. Hand over the money to you, since everyone already knows. Let's stop pretending, let's show it off. Buy me some newspaper pages tomorrow, just write a sentence. That, Mr. Lu, at this time, the morning papers have been finalized, and the afternoon papers should be fine, Wei Yandan said, looking at the watch on his wrist. Then it's set at noon. Didn't they say that I am the only one? Then write a sentence on the entire page to tell them, Lu Feng said solemnly, just right, Lu Lang is still the leader. Also, Zhen Kun from Sun Hongkai will be here tomorrow morning. I see, it's all trivial matters, you should get off work early and rest. Lu Feng waved his hands and signaled that she could leave work. Back in the office, after a brief shower, Lu Feng lay down and rested. The next day, there was a lot of buzz in the industry, and many companies immediately launched market surveys to conduct real sales surveys on CuteChildren Technologies' directly operated stores, as well as some user surveys. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Jenkin took a group of people to board the ferry to Shenzhen. In the cabin, Jenkin told everyone, this time, we have to be tougher, and we can't let him come as he wants. How come? We need to check the financial account books, especially the subsidiary company CuteChildren Technology. Understood, don't worry. Elmi hadn't waited for Lu Feng's call. She woke up in a panic when she woke up in the morning. She glanced at the time and decided to talk to Lu Feng in person. After all, they didn't know each other for a long time, so if something went wrong, cooperation can be yellow. In the past, Lu Feng said that he wanted to challenge the entire industry. She didn't believe it. She just stared at GFN Electronics sales channel resources. Now Lu Feng has really singled out the entire industry and needs her to re-evaluate this person. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 806. At 8:30 in the morning, Lu Feng was eating at the breakfast meeting. He looked at Zhu Lidong and asked, "It's almost April, and the off-season is almost over after the new year. Why hasn't the sales volume of Wipita come up yet?" Zhu Lidong instantly felt that the breakfast in his mouth was not so delicious. He put down his chopsticks and said, "The market is very competitive. Since the New Year's Eve this year, the preferential activities of major factories have not ended, and we are also doing activities with price reductions. For a TV and VCD combined package will be launched in this month. TV is still the main business and the core business. It is a kind of trust in you to give it to you. I also believe that you have this ability." Lu Feng raised his head and glanced at the opposite side and said, "Help me get the Xiaolongbao." A bit. Du Guoying stood up and placed the Xiaolongbao in front of Lu Feng. "Yes, it's just that there are a lot of manufacturers targeting us, and the pricing is very tight. You can rest assured that we will come up with a plan in the past few days, put it on the market and test it, and there will be a change in April," Zhu Lidong assured. Lu Feng didn't ask any further questions, and said to Wei Yandan, "How about the person in charge of the media company, how about that person? It has been sentenced for more than 4 years. Because it is the transfer of contract benefits, there is not much money recovered," Wei Yandan replied. "This matter needs to be publicized within the company, and the audit team should not let them sit idle and go to the subordinate companies every once in a while. Now the media company is that woman, what is her name?" Lu Feng asked while eating. "Road. Mei Jiao." "How is this person?" Lu Feng asked without raising his head. "It's doing very well, but it hasn't turned into a regular, and is still the vice president," Wei Yandan said. "If you do well, you will be promoted. If you can use your own people as much as possible, the airborne management will be cold," Lu Feng commanded. "It is good." At less than 9 o'clock, a Porsche 911 parked downstairs at GFN Electronics headquarters. Elmi stepped on high heels and got out of the car. At the end of March, Shenzhen was already a bit hot, and the breeze was mixed with a bit of heat. Elmi took out the small satchel from the car and twisted her waist upstairs. Just after breakfast, before Lu Feng returned to the office and waited to sit down, a clerk knocked on the door and said, "Mr. Lu, Elmi from Nokia is looking for you and is already in the reception room." Lu Feng knew that many people came looking for him today, but he didn't expect that the first one who came up was Elmi. "I'm going to the living room." Lu Feng walked towards the door. In the living room, Elmi was thinking about the acquisition of GFN Electronics that day, which can be interpreted as wanting to help Lu Feng through the difficulties, but because he was anxious for him, his tone was not very good. Lu Feng opened the door and walked in to see Elmi sitting there with a cup of coffee in front of her, still so beautiful and moving. She saw a smile on Lu Feng's face and said, "Hello, it feels like a long time no see." "What?" "That's right. Although I don't like to participate in meaningless dinner parties or parties, I have been invited a lot in the past. I don't know what happened in the last week. No one called me." Lu Feng sat down and said. "Do you think it's strange?" Elmi smiled and said, "Actually, this is fine, you can relax yourself." "Then I have to thank you. I've been really clean this week." "What?" "I came with a letter of intent," Lu Feng asked with his legs crossed. "Mr. Lu, you're joking. I called you that day, and I was worried for you, too. There was a lot of rumors in the outside world that the investors were going to withdraw. I told my dad at the time that if the other party really wanted to withdraw, let's go, we'll give you the bottom line, of course, because I'm in a hurry." The tone may not be very good. Elmi looked at Lu Feng and said, "I believe you won't mind." "No, no, no. I'm very concerned." Lu Feng leaned on the sofa and said, "Your tone is not bad, you are arrogant. How much is Nokia worth now?" GFN Electronics is worth tens of billions of dollars. Can you handle it? Generally speaking, if a beautiful woman like herself acts softly, the other party will give her face and fool the matter. Unexpectedly, Lu Feng pointed it out directly, which makes her a little unable to step down. I'm also kind, and besides, helping you isn't just helping me, right? Elmi continued to draw on the relationship. Look at you, what's your expression? I haven't seen you for a few days, so it's cold. You won't know what I've been through these days. If I didn't like you, I wouldn't be able to talk to you like that, Lu Feng said solemnly. You just have feelings for me. I told you, I'm doing this for your own good. Why are you doing this? Are you unreasonable? Elmi became stronger and said to Lu Feng, you will bully I am so good for you, in exchange for your words. She choked up as she spoke, her eyes reddened. Lu Feng raised his eyebrows and sat there watching her cry, but she couldn't shed any tears. At about 10 o'clock, a clerk knocked on the door and said to Lu Feng, Mr. Lu, the CEO of Jin AO Technology wants to see you. Golden Technology, Lu Feng raised his brows and asked, why are you looking for me? This company is connected to the display screen of the pager, which is the one that asked for payment some time ago, the clerk reminded. Oh, Lu Feng said meaningfully, let him in. After a while, a man in his 40s knocked on the door and walked in. When he saw Lu Feng, his face was full of smiles. Mr. Lu, hello hello. Mr. CAO held Lu Feng's hand with both hands and said, I am the supplier of CuteChildren pager display screen. I have heard your name before, and I always follow a vice president of the marketing department. Lu Feng pulled his hand back, lit a cigarette, looked at him and asked, what are you doing with me? Didn't you already pay you the money? Mr. CAO looked a little embarrassed and said, I will prepare a table of meals at the Haven Hotel at noon. I hope you will appreciate your face and thank you for your love for us. What kind of love? Our contract is over. You are standing in front of me now, how can you smile? Where did you get the smile? Lu Feng stared at him and said, if something is wrong, just ask for money, no problem, I have made it clear for you, I signed it myself, what are you going to do? Mr. Lu, I was not because of the rumors outside, but because of some problems with the operation of the company. I am very confident in cooperating with GFN Electronics Group. You have to believe me. If you think it is not good, we will sign again. The contract, the payment for the goods can be settled in half a year, Mr. CAO promised. It's half a year now? If there are any fluctuations in CuteChildren technology, you must be the first to run. Are you a humming person? Go out and ask, since GFN Electronics was established to the present, which one has Laozi owed money? Supplier's money. Lu Feng stood up and glared at him, scolding, what the hell? Lu Feng's scolding was loud and resounded throughout the living room. Elmi was frightened by his outburst of temper. She stared at Lu Feng with wide eyes, as if she had made small moves some time ago. Lu Feng seemed to be very supportive to her just now, gentle. Mr. Lu, I'm wrong, I'm not authentic, you give me another chance, and there are not many domestic pager displays that can do it. CAO was scolded and felt a little uncomfortable, and said softly and hard, if we unite, it will be difficult for everyone. Ouch, are you here for this? Lu Feng sneered disdainfully and pointed at him with a cigarette between his two fingers, believe it or not, I gave you the whole industry. When other people say this, Mr. CAO will only take it as a joke. When Lu Feng said this, he is really not sure. After all, Lu Feng has invaded many industries in the past 2 years. Most of GFN Electronics suppliers are self-sufficient. Self-sufficient, this company seems to be able to do everything. Mr. CAO was just about to say a few soft words, trying to find a way to take the contract back. The clerk knocked on the door again and walked in, saying, Mr. Lu, the investor is here. Investors, Lu Feng took a breath and asked, Who is it? It's Mr. Jenkin, the vice president of Sun Hung Kai. Let him come up, Lu Feng instructed the clerk. Don't close the door. Jenkin walked upstairs with the people, and he was secretly making a draft in his heart. He knew that Lu Feng was not easy to deal with, but this time he had to know the real situation of CuteChildren technology. It's almost noon, and the afternoon paper has been pulled into newspapers and magazines, and the sale has officially started. The entire page of more than a dozen newspapers has been bought, and a sentence is written in bold and enlarged font, which reads, Lu Lang is still alone. Coquettish, the following is a line of small characters, Lu Feng, chairman of Jiafeng Electronics Group. The major newspapers also smelled a little different this morning. The afternoon paper has already started to publish related news. The headline is that the sales of CuteChildren pagers have skyrocketed. Lu Feng played a game of life and death. Mr. CAO stood there and stopped talking and didn't leave. He thought to himself, and you scolded me. It's not because I have a request from you, and investors will come later. You are also a grandson. Elmi was also thinking to herself while sitting on the side, scolding me for scolding the supplier, and seeing how he is in a while. Zhenkun went upstairs with a manic spirit, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, and looked particularly imposing. When he left Mr. Feng, his waist also stood up, and he had a leadership imposing manner. When he came over, he found that the place where Lu Feng saw him was a living room, not a conference room, and there were other people present. Mr. Lu, I'm here to represent Sun Hung Kai's investigation into the failure of CuteChildren's pager investment. It's not convenient to talk here. Let's change the place and call the company's finance department. Look. The finances should be eating at this point. Besides, investigation. What are you investigating? Lu Feng looked at Jenkin with a cold gaze and said, how much did Sun Hung Kai spend? Just investigate. Seeing that he was very confrontational, Jenkin said, Mr. Lu, we are also old friends. As an investor, no one welcomes me when I arrive today, and there is no reception. It doesn't matter, but I came with a mission, or else I can't report to Mr. Feng. Report. Lu Feng's expression sank, and he shouted, go back and tell him, if you want to vote, you can vote, if you don't vote, get out. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 807. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the audience was shocked. Mr. CAO's eyes widened and he looked at Lu Feng in disbelief. The one standing in front of him was an investor who paid real money. How could he actually say such a thing? Elmi was also stupid on the spot, but she knew the attitude of investors in front of the invested company, that is, the existence of a grandfather, but at this moment, Grandpa seems to be reprimanded by his grandson. Don't mention these two people, even Jenkin was confused by him. He was in a trance for a moment, thinking that Lu Feng was his investor. His face changed in response, and he said, Mr. Lu, it's done like this, what right do you have to say such things to me here? Do you need qualifications to scold you? What's wrong with scolding you? Don't give me the identity of an investor here. I'll tell you, just one sentence. If you want to invest, you can invest. Take the money and put it on the company's account. I use what you want, Lu Feng shouted at Zhenkun, you give me $1, and I have to give you $2 the next day, right? If it's a little risky, I will take the principal back immediately. You go back and tell me Mr. Feng, he should stop investing as soon as possible. Lu Feng. Jenkin couldn't take it anymore. He had never seen such a defiant person. He was in Sun Hung Kai and had contact with more than a few hundred companies. Those bosses who saw themselves were not polite. Why was he so arrogant? What are you shouting? It's my humming company, are you yelling at me on my side? Lu Feng shouted angrily, don't talk about you, even if Mr. Feng is standing here, he doesn't deserve it. Run all the way. Come here and want to reprimand me in person? Take a photo of pissing. Jenkin was so angry that he lost money from his own business, and he was so arrogant. He had never seen such a shameless person. He used his finger to land Feng, he had lost all his demeanor, and shouted, "I tell you, we divest. Also, you treat investors so badly that the entire investment industry will be spurned, and finally, you, Nima. You're a chicken," Lu Feng scolded back rudely. A clerk walked in with the afternoon paper in his hand and said to Lu Feng, "Mr. Lu, the afternoon paper has been delivered, do you want to read it?" "Don't see." Jenkin didn't want to stay any longer, so he turned around and left with the person. The clerk followed him out. The door was open. It was lunchtime. I didn't know how many managers passed by. Scared away. They had never seen Mr. Lu swear like this before. Who did Mr. Lu get angry with? Which department? I don't know, the noise is so fierce. It felt like the old man was going to be fired just now. Do you know who that old man is? I heard from Mr. Zhu's assistant just now that he was an investor in Xiangjiang. This time there is going to be a big problem, and the investor will withdraw his capital. What? Really? My God, did Mr. Lu scold investors just now? A group of people has been stunned, my good guy, the investor was scolded by such a bloody slapstick, and the world is probably the only one. If that person is really an investor, the matter of withdrawal must be a nail in the coffin. For a while, everyone was in no mood to eat. They stood not far away and pretended to chat, wanting to pay attention to the situation behind. If there was a large-scale withdrawal of capital, then there were only two ways. The first way is to buy it from another investor. If no one buys, they can only sell the assets of the enterprise and carry out equity redemption. If this happens, GFN Electronics will have a big problem. Standing aside, Mr. CAO breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he did not renew the contract. Otherwise, as soon as the investors withdrew, he would still have to chase after Lu Feng and settle the payment in advance. Elmi's mood has also improved a lot, and this time she will definitely be able to buy GFN Electronics at a lower price. Jenkins scolded that it was unreasonable. He thought to find a place to stay first. He didn't leave. He wanted to complete all the steps of the withdrawal here, and the withdrawal was clean. People like investing are simply looking for guilt. The clerk holding the newspaper walked side by side with Jenkins. The words on the cover caught Jenkins' attention and said, "Can you read the newspaper?" "Okay." Jenkins stopped and flipped through the newspaper, staring at the report with an unpredictable expression on his face. After a few minutes, he raised his head and saw a few people who looked like corporate management not far away, and asked them, "What's your business? It's written on it that Jiexun's pager sales have skyrocketed, really?" "Yes, I heard that Jiexun Technology's marketing department is crazy with joy, and it's selling well now." "Can't you still sell it a week ago?" Jenkins asked tentatively. "How much did you sell on the first day of listing?" "How do I know? I'm from the headquarters business department. You have to ask the people from Jiexun Technology about this. Besides, this data is a commercial secret. I guess no one knows about it except for the senior management of President Liu." Jenkins glanced at the newspaper again, turned his head and said to the person behind him, "Go back." This person was so unreasonable just now, with a lot of swear words. "What are you doing back home?" "If we hadn't been in the mainland now, I would have wanted to slap him," a middle-aged man behind him said with a dark face. "You know what's wrong with Mr. Lu's swearing? He is a man with a temperament, which means that he is frank and real." Jenkins walked back after speaking. Elmi had already stood up and was about to go to dinner. Next, as long as Sun Hongkai sold the equity, they would take over immediately, but before she could walk out the door, Jenkins came back with great strides. "Why did you come back, Mr. CAO wondered. Ha 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 ha, Zhen Kun looked at Lu Feng with a smile on his face, stretched out his hand and shook Lu Feng abruptly and said, just kidding with you, you still have a straight face, this person is not funny, in my eyes Li, you are just like Xiao, both children. Ha! Ha ha, Lu Feng looked at him and said, don't you want to withdraw your capital? Didn't you scold me? Why did you change sex in just a minute? Aya, this is not a joke, Mr. Feng is also impatient, you have not disclosed relevant data, the most important thing for everyone is to communicate, and then to understand each other. In my heart, President Lu has always been the best company. He is also the youngest and most handsome in the entrepreneurial family, Zhen Kun even flattered. Elmi and Mr. CAO stood by and looked dumbfounded. What's the situation? Don't withdraw, Lu Feng asked. If you don't withdraw, let me tell you, Mr. Feng understands investment. I will definitely convey what you mean when I go back. Talk about him well. This man is old and his mind is sometimes confused. Please be considerate, Zhen Kun looked towards the landing. Feng said, I'm just an errand runner too. Do you still want to check the accounts? I'll call the finance for you. Let's look over it. Where did the money you give me go to? Lu Feng asked him. No, it's too polite, we are all our own people, you can spend as much as you want. When I go back, I have to tell Mr. Feng about additional investment, Zhen Kun said firmly. So good to talk. It seems that you have heard some news, then I will show you a showdown. That's right, CuteChildren technology has not only lost money, but its sales have skyrocketed. I didn't expect the fake data to become real, you say this, it's worrying, Lu Feng patted Zhen Kun's shoulder with a distressed face and said, it's just my talent, I can't hide it. Yes, it can be seen that Mr. Lu is talented and unique in the world. If I were a teenager, I would definitely follow you. Mr. Feng is not good. I will go back and talk about this matter, Zhen Kun said very nicely, Xi and Hong Kai is not the only one who has the final say. Well, go back and tell Lao Feng a word, asking him to give me money is to give him a chance, but don't use it. I don't know how many people outside want to come in with banknotes in their hands, but they can't get in, Lu Feng said in a deep voice. Yes, Zhen Kun nodded again and again. Whether it was Elmi and President CAO in the living room, or the management quietly watching everything outside, their jaws dropped in shock at this moment. You give me money, is it a chance for you? What a crazy person to say such a thing, the world is really unique. Elmi stared at this man, she was shocked on the spot for a moment, this man exudes an incomparably powerful charm at this moment, everyone is strong, if it is just a little stronger, the other party will be jealous, but strong makes people look up, that is conquest. I'm going to dinner now, you can arrange it yourself, I don't have your arrangement here. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he walked out of the living room, and the management surrounding the outside quickly dissipated. The success of CuteChildren Pager is like a hurricane sweeping across various industries. At noon, the Advertising Association released a message. They believed that the CuteChildren Pager advertisement directed by Lu Feng was very artistic, with various colors and grays in it. The contrast is full of struggles against this world, and fully criticizes the malpractices of the times. The Advertising Association analyzed the advertisement from various angles, and believed that Lu Feng was a natural directorial genius. He had reached the master level in composition, shots, colors, characters, etc., and would choose the highest domestic advertising award for this advertisement. Great Wall Advertising Awards. At the same time, someone has sorted out the entire process of CuteChildren Pager, and sorted out a main line from product positioning, marketing, advertising, packaging, and pricing. Set of business courses, named Business Master Lu Feng's Artistic Operation. The news is fast. After Motorola conducted a simple survey at CuteChildren pager sales points in major cities, it compiled a research report and sent it to WhatNabeShe. It has been confirmed that CuteChildren pager sales in the previous week. The surge is not less than 700%. The main reason for the above is that the product positioning is high-toned, and it has firmly grasped the markets of love, making friends, and vanity. The main sales direction is that boys buy it for girls. WhatNabeShe looked at the report on the computer, his face was ashen. He had already thought clearly in his heart, before retiring, he would kill Lu Feng. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 808. For WhatNabeShe, this is no longer a matter of grudges, but Lu Feng's provocation of his own ability. As an old senior, he was slapped in the face like this, and he lost all face. A few days ago in Fuzhang, China, he was full of compliments, and some people even ridiculed the Roma group for being short-sighted, for squeezing such a capable vice president away. Now Lu Feng's blow has smashed it all to pieces, and his self-esteem can't accept it. During lunchtime, Lu Feng ate with his head down and didn't say a word. Except for Elmi, no one else was invited to sit at this table. Elmi already understood in her heart that GFN Electronics Group has stepped to a new level, occupying another industry in terms of products, and such a great change will make GFN Electronics re-evaluate. Actually, it's my fault, because I really can't afford to lose this time, and neither can Nokia. After the split, the communication business needs to quickly stabilize the market. Elmi decided to take retreat as advance, raised her head to look at Lu Feng and said sincerely, "If I hurt you, I can apologize to you." Lu Feng put down his chopsticks and sighed at her pitiful appearance. He knew what Elmi was thinking. Since the other party wanted to retreat, then he would go up to the pole. "I can understand you, no need to apologize." Lu Feng stared at her sapphire blue eyes and said, "As long as you don't hurt me, I will always give you the best." Elmi was still thinking of coaxing Lu Feng and inviting him to a meal. She was ambiguous and flirtatious. Unexpectedly, with a soft word, the other party lowered her posture completely, which made her secretly happy. "You're so nice, no boy has ever been so kind to me when I grew up." Elmi didn't plan to mention cooperation at this juncture today. But Lu Feng can't wait. He now needs to urgently speed up the cooperation with Nokia in Ruxin Lab to reduce the pressure on the R/U0026D company. When will your products be able to enter the country? The sales channels here can prepare you in advance and free up a special counter, Lu Feng said. What? Elmi looked at Lu Feng in surprise. She couldn't react. She was yelling at herself just now, but now she wants to help herself? Isn't that embarrassing? Elmi felt that it was too much. It's all my own, you're welcome, not to mention that we have already signed a contract, and you guys will put the products on the market as soon as possible, Lu Feng urged Elmi. But the network access license has not been approved yet, and I don't know when. I'll remind you about this. It's the end of the month, and the beginning of April will be absolutely fine, Lu Feng said with confidence. Really? Elmi was surprised. Can I still lie to you? Lu Feng wiped his mouth, stood up and said, you must tell the above about R/U0026D cooperation, especially the Ruxin laboratory, which is the top priority. Elmi stood up and approached Lu Feng, tapped his cheek, and said softly, don't worry. Then you go back first. I know it's going to be difficult for Nokia, so I still think that you guys should ship and sell the phone as soon as possible, Lu Feng cared. Elmi agreed. He walked out with diligent steps, went downstairs and saw that Mr. CAO was still waiting there. Mr. CAO hurried up and exchanged a few words, secretly hating that he was not a daughter. Lu Feng didn't dare to appear too impatient, but with Nokia moving so slowly, he couldn't wait any longer. As for the cooperation that Elmi promised, he didn't take it seriously at all. With such a deep technical background, would he cooperate with him? Lu Feng couldn't believe it. To achieve cooperation, he still needs a little trick. Before returning to the office, a male assistant ran over and said, "Mr. Lu, there is an overseas call that needs you to answer." "Who is it?" Lu Feng raised his brows. "From overseas, could it be Kevin?" "The other party just said that he has something to communicate with you, and the call has been transferred to your office. Please come here." Back in the office, Lu Feng picked up the phone and said, "Who is it?" "Hello. I'm Mr. Watanabe's translator. Now Mr. Watanabe wants to talk to you." The voice on the other end of the phone was very stiff, as if someone owed him money. "Who the hell did I think it was you, so what do you want to say?" Lu Feng smiled disdainfully, sat down, and lit a cigarette. "Lu Feng, you are very capable, but don't be too arrogant. Nakatajiro's pig can be dealt with by anyone. I thought that this matter is over, and I am also ready to retire." Watanabe she looked, he said gloomily. "Now you're embarrassing me." "I embarrassed you?" "No, you brought it on yourself." "Lu Feng, young people need to find their own position, don't yell at everyone, and learn to leave room for others when doing things, otherwise there will be no place for you in this world," Watanabe said. "Do you understand?" "Ha? Ha ha. Are you talking about seniority with me here? Do I have to answer your question loudly? If you can't hear me, I have to keep yelling. Since you're not going to retire and want to play with me, well, I will send you to retire with my own hands, and I'll chase after you not only in the mainland, but also in other countries, and I'll beat you all over. It seems that you really want to fight with me. Okay. You can. I hope you don't regret it." Watanabe finished and signaled the translator to hang up. In the morning, Jiexun's pager sales surged, and there was a lot of buzz, especially Lu Feng's sentence that Lu Lang was still leading the way. I don't know how many people saw a handsome and elegant Lu Feng. The whole world thought that he was beaten to death this time, lying on the floor and could never get up again, but the next second Lu Feng stood up with a smile on his face, and even took a brisk pace and punched his opponent. Knocked down, as if to tell the world that I was knocked down, I actually pretended. The news spread like a rocket, and it reached Xiangjiang in a blink of an eye. Su Yurong couldn't get in touch with Lu Feng during this period of time, and she couldn't get away from going to Shenzhen to find Lu Feng. Every day she went to the company, she was surrounded by several directors. Scolding. If Wei Yandan hadn't been comforting her for the past 2 days, telling her that nothing serious would happen, or Su Yurong really couldn't bear it and ran to find Lu Feng. The news that Jiexun pager sales had skyrocketed, Su Yurong called Jiafeng Group as soon as she heard the news to confirm. After getting a positive reply, she didn't care about eating, and called the directors first. "Let them come." In the conference room, the 4 largest directors were sitting there waiting. They wanted to see what news Su Yurong could bring to them. A few minutes later, Su Yurong stepped on high heels, with murderous eyes in those wonderful eyes, striding meteors. Walked towards the conference room. Pushing the door open and looking at a few people, Su Yurong scolded directly, "I'm sorry for your mother, you humming know how to urge me all day long. Is it useful to urge my mother? Don't you want to withdraw your capital? You are afraid of losing money? Well, my mother told you that it can be withdrawn now, and Zhen Kun from Sun Hongkai has also gone, and Lu Feng told him that he can withdraw." "Really? That's great, let's withdraw," a slightly bald director hurriedly said. "Shen Nima is a big fool." Su Yurong couldn't hold back his anger at all, and scolded the crowd, "You want to withdraw from projects that make steady money." The 4 of them were scolded with ugly faces, and shouted at Su Yurong, "Su Yurong! Don't spit feces here, do what you can. If you can't do it, get out of here and cause such a huge loss to the company. It's all because of you, I tell you, I have to check whether there is any insider trading between you and Lu Feng. Where's your mother on the inside? Fire me? Blind your eyes, Su Yorong shouted at the four of them without fear. I tell you, Jiexun's pager sales have skyrocketed, and it is expected to become the #1 in the mainland. Even Motorola was bullied by him. What? The four of them were all shocked and couldn't believe it. How is that possible? Isn't all the fake data released some time ago? This is the latest news today. Jenkin went and scolded Lu Feng bloody, but he didn't dare to say anything. If you guys want to leave, I'll give you a call. Don't worry, wait outside. There are so many shares, the money is absolutely no problem, Su Yorong said solemnly. The expressions of the four changed, and they hurriedly put on smiles. Su Yorong would never lie about such a thing. The four old men stood up and said, Aya, what are you doing so arrogant? This is a good thing. Come, sit down. Su Yorong sat down, looked at the four of them and said, didn't you say you want to check my relationship with Lu Feng? Are you afraid of sending the company's interests out? Check, I'm not afraid to tell you, I just have dirty hands and feet, and I will be fired. The big deal, let me tell my man, dilute your equity, or don't invest at all. Whatever your hands and feet are not clean, you deserve it. The few of us have not spoken very well in the past 2 days. You should be more concerned. Yes, this investment should continue. If GFN wants to make additional investment, we can also invest more. Su Yorong watched a few people speak so softly and drizzly, she snorted and said nothing more, stood up and walked outside. The news spread quickly in Xiangjiang. Kevin was sitting in the restaurant and eating. During this time, he had asked someone to help him with his work. As for when there was news, he didn't know. The noon news was playing on the TV in the restaurant, and the host said, Continental GFN Electronics Group is suddenly upset today, and its Jiexun pagers beat a large number of foreign brands such as Motorola, Panasonic, Ericsson, etc. in sales, with single-day sales. Break the 60,000 mark. Kevin raised his head abruptly, feeling as if his ears had misheard, staring at the TV tightly. There was only one voice left in his heart, how could it be possible? He actually succeeded. For Kevin, this news is no less than a Mars hitting the Earth. Lu Feng completely broke all his logic of business behavior. Behind the seemingly nonsense, he has achieved such a great success. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 809. Kevin didn't care about eating for a while, and watched TV intently until all the news about GFN Electronics had been broadcast. He hurriedly stood up and settled the bill, and went out to find a phone to call a friend in the mainland. Hey, Mr. Lee? I'm Kevin, I want to ask you something. Jiexun pagers are selling very well now, Kevin asked on the phone. Yeah, this is big news, aren't you in the mainland? Let me tell you, the whole industry is in a frenzy. Lu Feng is definitely a god of war this time. I heard that the sales are constantly breaking new highs. You are not in him, what? Mr. Lee wondered. Oh, it's okay, I'll just ask. It's just that I haven't seen this business model before. I really didn't expect this pager to be a big seller. Kevin wanted to ask something. Now many associations, business schools, and lecturers in the South are splitting up his logic. I also went to listen to a class. Generally speaking, there are 3 points. The product positioning is not only about communication, but mainly about interpersonal communication. When a product is no longer a product, but endowed with other capabilities, it is different. Pricing is also very critical, and there is a new innovation, that is the herd effect. Find a bunch of people in line, others I will follow the purchase. I just listened to this, Mr. Lee said on the phone. Oh, so do you think someone like Lu Feng has a future? Kevin asked. There must be a future, let me tell you, This person rushed out from a small place, and he has never lost until now. I don't know how many people squeezed their heads and tried to join him. You can be considered a blessing in disguise. Now the company is not big, really. If you become a Fortune 500 company, you will be an old employee, Mr. Lee said enviously. It's a blessing in disguise. It's a disaster again, Kevin sighed. Just like this, I have something to do, so I hang up first. After hanging up the phone, Kevin stood there and smoked a cigarette, but decided to call Du Guoying. In the ups and downs of the business world over the past few decades, he knew a truth well, that is to follow a rising boss. For an executive, it is a lifetime treasure. Such people are often surrounded by great people, and success can be effortless. Even if his ability is not so high, the strength of the team will hold him to an unprecedented height. Kevin thinks that people have 3 levels in their life. The first level is talking about dialogue, which can make a person have excess returns in the short term. The second level is doing the right thing and doing things in the right direction, which can make a person in the mid-term. There is continuous income, and the third layer is to follow the right person, that is, the excess and stable income for a lifetime. The call was connected, and it was Du Guoying's assistant who picked it up. The young man who rode a motorcycle around a few years ago now needs to make an appointment to talk, which makes Kevin feel a little frustrated. After telling the assistant on the phone his phone number, he hung up the phone. Kevin also thought about calling Lu Feng directly, but he didn't know whether the other party would hold grudges. After all, he left when he was in the most difficult time. Du Guoying came out of the conference room and just arrived at the door of the office. The assistant came out of the next office and said, "Mr. Du, someone called you." It was the Kevin from the overseas marketing department. Kevin. "Anyway, you helped me, and I'll give it back to you," Du Guoying muttered. After a call was made, the two of them didn't speak after the call was connected. There was only silence between them. After a long silence, Du Guoying took the lead and said, "I will tell him and try to help you as much as possible." "Thanks." The two don't owe each other. Du Guoying put down the phone and walked out of the office. She asked her assistant, "Where is Mr. Lu now? Are you having a meeting?" "Probably not, in the office." Du Guoying knocked on the door of the office, and Lu Feng's voice came from inside, just opened the door and walked in, saying, "Mr. Lu, I have something to do." Lu Feng closed the folder in front of him and asked without raising his head, "What's wrong?" "There is movement in the market. If they want to take a similar route, it will take at least 10 days and a half months. It's not possible, is it? The market is quite stable." "I received a phone call. I don't know if I should say something," Du Guoying said awkwardly. "Do you think I'm busy?" Lu Feng raised his head to look at him and said, "If you have something to say, say it quickly." "Kevin called me," Du Guoying said directly. Lu Feng took a deep breath, leaned back on the chair and said, "It's not surprising, you can come back if you want, but it's definitely not like before." I begged him to come back. "Guoying, this short 10 days and a half months, I believe that you have also seen some warm and cold human feelings, and the world is hot and cold. I am not saying that I am cold to human nature, but the world is like this." I don't think he's doing very well either. There is nothing good or bad. Good birds choose wood to live in. It has been the case since ancient times. You can also see that this person is not something that our small company that has not gone international can stay. He was arrogant before, I endured it. Now, Lu Feng said to Du Guoying, "People always have to show a little strength, and the other party will obey you. Only when he gives up his mind can he settle down and do things. This time these troubles happen. Look at Zhu Lidong, Wei Yandan, and Lu Cheng. Have you reacted?" The people Lu Feng mentioned have been obedient to him for a long time. To put it bluntly, a good general is a beast and needs to be tamed. Kevin is capable, Otherwise Lu Feng would not have tossed it for so long, but the people under his command felt in his heart. The boss is a brainless person, and I believe this company can't go very far. The other party will not really work hard. I think he has the cheek to call me this time, and he is really convinced. As for whether to let me back, you have the final say. I have another concern. In case there are some twists and turns in the future, he thinks it will not work. If you leave again, it will be troublesome. Du Guoying handed the question to Lu Feng. Tell him, I'm inviting him to dinner tonight, at the Kifa Chef in the commercial street. Lu Feng lit a cigarette as he spoke. As for your worries about leaving, do you think is there a perfect person in the world? No. There are many talented people in this world, but there is no perfect person. We don't understand the international market, so we have to find someone else. I don't care whether they can run or not. As long as they have the ability, we will use them. The key is how to use them. Question. I see. Du Guoying went back to the office and called Kevin and told him the news. Kevin became excited and immediately went to buy a ticket to rush over. On the way, he also secretly sighed that he was also a jerk, and people kept him so much before. I insisted on leaving, and now I have the cheek to go back. At 7 o'clock in the evening, in the private room on the second floor of the Chef of Chi mansion, Du Guoying had already arrived. Kevin sat aside and lost his arrogance at the time. He's busy, wait a minute, I'll ask the assistant to call and ask. After the assistant finished the phone call, he came back and whispered in his ear, Mr. Lu is sleeping. Okay, I get it, Du Guoying said to Kevin. Mr. Lu is now busy with a meeting to study the Asian market in the international market. To tell the truth, I'm very embarrassed, Kevin said embarrassedly. I don't see you outside. I really missed the point, so I want to come back now. It's okay, Mr. Lu is very good at talking. Half an hour later, Lu Feng woke up, simply packed up, went downstairs and walked towards the intersection. The waiter pushed open the private room door, and Lu Feng walked in. Du Guoying and Kevin stood up and said politely. Kevin said to Lu Feng, Hello, Mr. Lu. Well, okay, I'll sit down. Lu Feng looked at the ground, pulled up the chair without raising his head and sat on the main seat, and ordered, Serve the food, this restaurant is okay, don't look at the star, the food is delicious. I also followed you, Du Guoying said with a smile. If it's delicious, I'll come here as a treat in the future. It's not too expensive, it's pretty good. The two of them chatted without a word. Kevin sat beside him and felt like his whole face was red and stiff. He started talking several times, but Lu Feng skipped over him and talked to Du Guoying. As the food came, Lu Feng brought out 2 bottles of red wine. Lu Feng looked at Kevin and said, What's wrong? Have you been traveling for a few days and having fun? Travel? Kevin knew immediately that he was going down the steps, and hurriedly said, Just go home and see the house, it's all good, thank you Mr. Lu for your concern. Kevin, let me tell you, a lot of things happened during your absence, the international market still hasn't developed much, and it's still relying on Zhangjiang's agents to deliver goods. I can't give you that much for this salary. The annual salary will be reduced to $100,000. Of course, there are still bonuses. If you do well, it is not a problem to get hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, Lu Feng said with a serious look. No matter where people go, they still have to get them. Come up with your own set of things. Yes, I know, I understand, don't worry, Kevin nodded. To be honest, I'm just busy. Otherwise, I'll do it myself in the international market. It's really easy, Lu Feng sat there and boasted. If I were in charge of the knife, I would have done it myself. You really don't look like that. Yes, Kevin turned around. Lu Feng quietly observed Kevin's expression. He didn't sneer or ridicule. The arrogance in his eyes basically disappeared. Although this person did not agree with Lu Feng's words, he didn't feel that what Lu Feng said just now. Outrageous words. Mr. Lu, I really convince you, let's talk about the pager. I really didn't know what to do at first. You said I didn't understand anything. I was brought up by you, and I've come to this day step by step. It's really a blessing in life to meet you. I toast to you. Du Guoying picked up the glass.